This is Dr. David Jockers, and today I'm talking about hypoglycemia, the causes for this, and natural solutions. And so hypoglycemia means low blood sugar, and we're going to jump into this topic in detail. And so typically for most people, when their blood sugar goes down, and these are for individuals that are sugar burners, not for people that are in nutritional ketosis, but when blood sugar starts dropping low, the early warning signs that you have this condition of hypoglycemia. You may tremble a little bit. You may have extra sweating, numbness and tingling, especially like in the face, lips, fingers, things like that. Headaches are very common. Irritability. In fact, we can use the term hangry because it's like you're hungry and angry together. And you really want food now. Pounding heart, sleepiness. So these are all conditions that are associated with hypoglycemia in the early types of signs. So you get tired. Also, your heart starts accelerating because you get a rush of stress hormone that amplify your cardiovascular, the cardiovascular rate. So the amount your body thinks you're in a fight or flight state because you're in danger, your blood sugar's low, so your heart starts racing. So the symptoms of very low blood sugar that can be life-threatening, you get distorted. You forget where you're at. You get just major mental confusion, blurred vision. Okay, that typically happens. And then right after that, oftentimes difficulty speaking, and then you can even have a seizure, coma, or you just pass out. So there's a lot of people have seen people actually pass out in public, and oftentimes it's due to this very low blood sugar that wasn't addressed. And so when we look at this, we know that basically when your blood sugar drops below 82.8 milligrams per deciliter, you get this inhibition of endogenous or produced within our body insulin. So insulin levels are no longer produced at that level. But blood sugar can continue to drop because your body is continuing to use sugar. Also, there can be insulin left in the system. In fact, a lot of people overproduce insulin. So that insulin continues to drag the blood sugar down. You'll start noticing these major hypoglycemia types of symptoms, typically in the 70s. I think you can see 70 kind of right there in that 70 to 80 range. And then at 68.4, you get this hormone glucagon that's released. And glucagon's job is to elevate blood sugar. And then if it gets down to 66.6, adrenaline and growth hormone become released. So adrenaline is what really gives us, that ramped up heart rate, okay, because it's an amplifier. It's a fight or flight amplifier. You'll also get a cortisol release. And so you can see kind of that major symptomatic hypoglycemia. They'll talk about between 60 and 40, but I'll see it with a lot of people in the 70s as well. But this is kind of what the research says right here. And then we continue to go on. At 46.8, we get that cognitive dysfunction. By the time it drops around 30, we've got basically severe oxidative stress in the brain because the brain's not getting the glucose it needs. And that's when you can have the coma or the seizure. So it's kind of the progression there. And this is really what happens for most people is that, really we should, when we consume food, we're always going to get a little bit of a blood sugar rise, even if we're on a ketogenic diet. It's normal to get some rise in your blood sugar. You're going to get a little bit of a rise in insulin. However, it should really drop down and taper and should remain much more balanced. It should not be these huge peaks and valleys, as opposed to somebody that is having major issues with hypoglycemia, and they're eating a high carbohydrate diet. So they eat food that's either high in carbohydrates or foods that their body is very sensitive to, that create a stress response in their body. And they eat that, and their body chugs out a whole bunch of insulin pretty quickly. And then so sugar goes way up and then drops way down quickly into that symptomatic range where they start having hypoglycemic types of symptoms. And then the body starts producing stress hormones and glucagon to help raise that sugar up. And that's where you kind of see that bottom rise there. And so that is the issue there, is that there's just really high amount of insulin secretion, typically, again, due to high carbohydrate foods that are in the diet, oftentimes simple processed sugars, also micronutrient deficiencies like magnesium, B vitamin deficiencies can lead to higher levels of circulating insulin, and this kind of dramatic drop in blood sugar, and then also foods that we're sensitive to. So if we have a sensitivity to eggs or a sensitivity to peanuts or something like that, and we're eating those foods, we can have this sort of reaction as well. And so when we look at the glucagon-insulin cycle, you could see basically the job of glucagon is to raise blood sugar, to break down glycogen into glucose and raise blood sugar. And it does that when we have low blood sugar. When it senses, the body senses we have low blood sugar, the alpha cells in the pancreas secrete glucagon. Now, the beta cells in the pancreas produce insulin when blood sugar goes up. And that's what, again, takes the sugar out of the bloodstream, puts it into the cells to use for energy. And so should be kind of this feedback loop here that these two hormones play. But ultimately, the goal is to not have really big peaks and valleys by following a healthy diet and lifestyle. And so strategies to overcome hypoglycemia: number one, reduce carb intake. I recommend a lower carb, high healthy fat diet. Also getting really good, high quality, clean protein, grass-fed, organic meat products, wild-caught fish. Okay, manage stress effectively. High levels of stress and poor sleep can lead to a lot more of these spikes and valleys with your blood sugar. You need to support good digestion. Good digestion is critical because if you have leaky gut, if you've got a bacterial overgrowth in your small intestine, candida, things like this, you're going to have a lot more stress when you eat because there's going to be a lot more endotoxins, so waste coming from bacteria and yeast that makes it into the bloodstream, that stresses the body and causes more inflammation and causes more of these blood sugar peaks and valleys. So we need to support good digestion, good stomach acid release, good enzymes, good healthy microbiome. Magnesium and minerals can make a huge impact in your blood sugar stability. Those are definitely things I recommend for diabetic patients, people that do struggle with low blood sugar, typically very deficient in magnesium, as well as other trace minerals, sodium, potassium, calcium, boron, zinc, selenium, different things like that oftentimes could play a really big role. And then also considering a ketogenic diet, which is, basically a higher level of a lower carb diet. It's a high fat, low carb, moderate protein diet. You can see this person right here eating a salad with avocados, olives, onions. That would be an example of a ketogenic meal right there. Now, you could also do healthy meats as well if you eat meat. But that's a ketogenic meal because there's a lot of fats in the olives and avocados and very low carbohydrate foods with the onions, with the vegetables. All those things are very low in carbs, high in healthy fats. So that's the key. Now, when we look at good fats, we want things like grass-fed butter. Tallow is beef fat. Ghee, which is a clarified butter. The palm coconut oils are good. They're healthy fats so the body can use. Avocado oil, olive oil, fish oil, eggs, all good. Whereas the bad fats are going to be your canola, soybean, sunflower, corn oil, safflower, grapeseed, margarine, cottonseed, and peanut oil. These are all polyunsaturated fats. Okay, so whereas the good fats are mostly saturated and monounsaturated fats, the only one there that's primarily a polyunsaturated is fish oil. We only want to use molecularly distilled, purified fish oil, and not in like excessive amounts. Certainly wouldn't want to cook with it. We actually want to stick with more of our saturated and monounsaturated, where they only have one double bond. So monos would be like avocado, olives, whereas your saturated would be more like your butter, your coconut oil, palm oil, things like that. And so those ones are resistant to oxidative stress. They're much more resistant and they're not going to combust. Whereas the ones that are more fragile that combust, and they're also these polyunsaturated fats are also very high in omega-6 fats that create more inflammation in the body. These are the ones we want to stay away from, all these different plant-based fats. The only plant-based fats we should stick with are coconut, avocado, palm. Those are really the main ones. Maybe a little bit like hemp oil, maybe a little flax oil, walnut oil, but only in small amounts. I wouldn't recommend doing a whole lot of those. So strategies to balance cortisol levels. You could see anti-inflammatory healing diet, which is what we're talking about. These good fats, lots of vegetables, lots of micronutrients, reducing stress, finding what the major stress triggers are and promoting peace, whether it's changing your own thought patterns, which is typically the majority of it, or changing your environment. Sometimes you're in really stressful intense environment, so you need to change your environment. Super important here. Sleep well, good sleep hygiene, getting to bed early, keeping your room dark. I recommend being in bed by 10. So every hour before midnight of sleep is equivalent to 3 hours of regenerative sleep after midnight. So getting really good sleep habits is so important. Keeping your room as dark as possible or wearing an eye mask is key. Using good sleep postures, turning your Wi-Fi off, making sure your cell phone is not on. If it's near you, it should be on airplane mode. It should not be on right next to you. You don't want that electromagnetic frequency to impact your sleep. These are all important things. Deep breathing throughout the day, just stopping and taking a few moments to take some deep breaths helps take us out of fight or flight and put us back into rest and heal mode. Grounding your body, getting out bare feet, grass, dirt, sand, getting out in nature and grounding your body. When we have rubber soles on, it blocks us from the healthy electromagnetic frequencies from the earth. When we're barefoot or if we're in like leather shoes or something like that, we're going to get the healthy electromagnetic healthy electromagnetic frequencies that are coming from the earth. So that's important. And just being in nature itself, that you're around a healthy electromagnetic frequency. So key. Magnesium, supplement with adaptogenic herbs. Things like things like ashwagandha, rhodiola, cordyceps, reishi mushroom, ginseng. These things are really powerful for helping balance your blood sugar and return your body to a good homeostatic point. So magnesium, again, the master mineral. So if there was one supplement that I would recommend for somebody dealing with hypoglycemia, it would definitely be a high quality magnesium. I really like the one that we have. It's called Brain Calm Magnesium. It's a magnesium L-threonate that crosses the blood-brain barrier. Really has a dramatic impact on brain function. So really good, but get a good high-quality magnesium and use that on a daily basis. And then when we're looking at labs, we know that, again, hypoglycemia, blood sugar under 80, whereas you could be fat or keto adapted, like myself, and you can have your blood sugar under 80, but feel really good. So the difference is somebody with hypoglycemia, they have sugar cravings. They're irritable and tired, unable to concentrate, adrenal fatigue. So they're wired and tired. They have chronic inflammation and pain in their body and all different types of issues. Whereas the fat adapted person actually feels great. They feel really, really good, mentally stable, low levels of inflammation in their body. And one other test that we can look at is hemoglobin A1C. And that's kind of your 90 to 180 day, 120 day measurement of your blood sugar and how it's impacting your blood vessels. And typically, somebody with hypoglycemia oftentimes will have a hemoglobin A1C that's high. Even though their fasting blood sugar is low, their hemoglobin A1C oftentimes could be very high. Now, not always. I will see it lower at times, but for some of them, it can be very high. Whereas, if your blood sugar is real stable, you're stable, fat adapted, it's going to be lower in that 4.5 to 5.2 range. Another test that I look at is something called LDH. And LDH is lactose dehydrogenase. Typically, it's real low. It should be between 140 and 180, and oftentimes it's very low with somebody that's dealing with reactive hypoglycemia. So that's another test that I look at. Now, ketones or glucose, you can see in the mitochondria, ketones are just much better, easier conversion, and much less metabolic stress and metabolic debris that's produced using ketones rather than glucose. So being on a ketogenic approach and getting your body the metabolic flexibility to use ketones when your blood sugar goes down is a significant advantage in your life. You're not going to deal with the hypoglycemia type symptoms. You're going to produce a lot less stress and oxidative stress and inflammation in your body, and it's going to help prolong your lifespan and your quality of life. So getting keto adapted, where your body is able to use ketones for fuel, really great advantage for somebody dealing with hypoglycemia. Definitely something I would recommend. So hopefully this video stimulated your appetite to know more about ketosis and the ketogenic diet, because it's definitely a significant approach when it comes to improving your overall quality of life and taking you to the next level. And so anybody that's dealing with blood sugar issues, which is most people in America, should consider ketosis and a ketogenic approach and really find a good coach to help walk you through that process to get keto adapted. So I'd definitely look into that. And one way to test your blood ketones is with the Keto Mojo. You can actually test your blood glucose and ketones. And especially if you have a history of hypoglycemia, really good idea to be testing your sugar and your ketones throughout the day as you're working to get keto adapted. Over time, you really don't need to do this because you understand how you feel when you're keto adapted, but in the beginning can be really, really helpful. So again, hopefully this was a great video for you guys, and bless you guys, and see you on a few